Players build a lush ecosystem by planting seeds, growing trees, and placing other natural elements on your planet in Evergreen. Thank you for joining me here at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Kevin Delp. Evergreen is an open drafting action selection game for 1 to 4 players, all about making a huge forest on your planet. The game plays in about 45 to 60 minutes, and it's published by Horrible Guild. They give us this copy to review, so let's dive in. Players each have their player board, which is their personal planet, with their sun starting at the top. Trackers at their starting positions. In the middle of the play area is a deck of cards, and you'll create a drafting pool of cards, which is based on the number of players plus 1. Here's a quick overview of the game. Evergreen is played over 4 seasons. Each season has a number of rounds depending on what season you're in. Each round has 3 phases: draft, action, and then the end of the round phase. You can earn points during the season, and at the end of every season, and some end game points at the end of the game. Let's look at each of the phases now for the round. During the draft phase, each player in turn order picks 1 card from the display. There will be 1 card left, and that goes to the Fertility Zone. What's in this zone will determine end game scoring. Then players move to the action and power phase. The card you got during the draft phase tells you which biome on your board you have to take your action. So if the card is snow, you'll take an action in the snowy region. Your choices are listed on your board, like planting sprouts, growing trees, a combination of those, or ignoring the region restriction, but your benefit is lower. In addition to the action, you can activate your power as indicated on the bottom right of your card. You can do this before or after your action. Move your marker up the matching track and apply the effects to your board. Some of them are similar to the actions, but there are different effects like placing bushes or lakes or getting buds, which are points. The number you place will be greater as you advance your marker up the track throughout the game. Players are all doing this simultaneously, all of these actions and powers on their board. The length of the season is shown in the bottom left of your player board. 5 rounds in the first, then 4, 3, and the last season only has 2 rounds. At the end of the season, players count up points 2 main ways: through collecting light and counting your biggest forest. When collecting light, you look at where your sun is and gain points for your small and large trees that are not in the shade. The rules are pretty clear on what is and is not in the shade. Then you move to your biggest forest on your board and get a point for each tree and bush in the largest area. You'll set up for the next season until the game is over and then count up end game points. This is where what's in the Fertility Zone really matters. The number of fertility icons for a biome determine the number of points awarded to each big tree that you have in that biome. So if there are 5 fertility icons for wheat, then each of my big trees in the wheat region give me 5 points. Now during the game, these death cards can be placed in the zone, and they basically make a card below it turn over, which is usually making that biome have less fertility. I like the ease of play that comes in Evergreen. Draft a card, take an action, and the power effect. But the strategic decisions of what you can do with all of this really grabs my attention. What card do I want to draft? Or at least what cards are available, because I may want to grow or plant in certain areas. There are wild biomes in the deck, and those are really sought after when they come up in the draft. I think the powers at the top of the board will really determine what path you want to take. You won't be able to push all the markers up all the tracks to the fullest extent. You only have 14 turns in the game, and there are 18 slots to go up. So do you want to focus on a few or spread out and try and do a little of all of them? I found it more beneficial to focus on a few. I really like the lake power personally because it allows you to do 2 growth actions to adjacent sprouts or small trees. Some people really like the small tree growth one that gets their forest going. But I think all of them can help you in some way. Like the bushes help you extend your forest for those end of season large forest points. The theme really works well in Evergreen, not only the growing parts, but especially when it's time to score those light points. Getting points based on the position of the sun is really interesting. You are always thinking, am I placing those sprouts in the right spots and growing them at the right times so you can get those maximum points? But you know the sun's going to be moving to the next season. Now, the last part of the game that really intrigues me is the Fertility Zone. That last card that isn't picked each round goes there. So being last player in a draft can be pretty powerful. You have limited options, but really big options as you are the one choosing which of those last 2 cards gets to go to that zone. Those cards can offer some big points or deny some big points at the end of the game. I'm always looking at what is in that zone because I need to be growing trees into big trees in that region, and that's going to give me a lot of points. I found it usually is best not to focus on just 1 or 2 regions on your board, but to spread out because that zone can really change from season to season. The nice thing is, usually by the last season, not a lot's going to change because there's only 2 more cards going into that area. And sometimes you can see what other players are working on so you know what regions they're also interested in. Now, usually I'm a big fan of simultaneous play. I really like that in games, but it's actually a small critique for me in this game. It's a little bit of a detriment because I like knowing what players are doing and how they're doing it on their board. I'm not saying people are purposely cheating, but I've accidentally done a certain action or grow and it wasn't how the rules wanted it to be done. Now, that's on me. But I'm pretty sure other players may accidentally do things that are a benefit to them, but the rules forbid it. For instance, you can't place a sprout and then immediately grow it. That can sometimes be an easy rule to forget. But once players get used to all the iconography, I think the simultaneous play is okay. The player interaction in the game really comes in with the draft. What cards will or won't be available to me. Sometimes players are looking for certain regions or certain powers, but players can't affect what I actually do on my board. The double layer board is very nice. The pieces fit in well and don't move if you accidentally bump the board. The wooden components are cool with all the different shapes. It makes your planet look amazing by the end of the game. The insert is basically places for all the components. I think it works pretty well. I think this game has a lot of replayability. The draft and the Fertility Zone would be the 2 pieces that stand out to me that really make the game different from game to game. Overall, I would say this game is a medium weight game. It's got the easy draft that card and do the action and power effect, but strategic enough to not be a light game. Here's some final thoughts for me. This is a good game. It all works well. You might like Evergreen if you like drafting games, or a game like Photosynthesis that also has a mechanic about how trees shadow other trees. What questions do you have about Evergreen? Let me know in the comments. Let's spread the love of board gaming. We'd love for you to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button on this video.